She is a good friend of the show. It's fun to have her back. I just learned her nickname that I will now forever more call her, which is Cujo. Is it that right? Is it Cujo?
Oh, my gosh.
Courtney Johnston joins us on the show, Metro City Council. Is it Cujo? I thought you said it was
Cujo.
Oh, Cujo.
Who is Stop.
Cujo? You don't know Cujo?
No, I must be too young for that.
Oh, I see what you did there, huh? Cujo was the dog in the Stephen King book. You know Cujo?
That stuff scared me.
Like Cujo was, it's a book. It's a great book. Back when I actually advocated for and liked Stephen King before he went off the rails. But it's about a St. Bernard that goes rabid.
Oh.
And, I mean, it's literally a book surrounding a woman and her son in a car trying to avoid a rabid dog and their car's broken down. It's a great book. Great book. Cujo. Rabid St. Bernard.
I'll just take your word for it. But anyway.
But you're not rabid, nor are you a St. Bernard, so you are Cujo.
I'm Cujo. Yeah. My friend's son gave me that nickname.
I think it fits.
I know, right?
How's it going?
Great.
You had a Metro Council meeting. You were. I told Tales Out of School, I think. I said that a guest that I have on today was a little annoyed that she couldn't attend the Davidson County Reagan dinner because it was scheduled on the same night as it.
Yeah, that was me.
Well, but I give them, I know it was you. I give them a little grace because it's easy to forget that they're actually Republicans of the Metro Nashville City Council.
Okay.
Is that fair?
No.
Are you mad at them?
I mean, I'm a little irritated.
I don't blame you.
I would have been there. I would have bought a table.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We would have loved to have seen you.
I know. I would have really enjoyed it. And it was a great venue as well. Woolworth Theater, right?
The Woolworth Theater,
Yeah.
The first time I've been, and that is a fabulous place.
It really is.
And I've seen these. We had a great conversation around our table 13, which was appropriate.
I was about to say.
A great conversation around our table. Pamela Furr was there. There were a few others there. Mark Pody, Senator Pody was there. And we were talking. There's a theatrical production that goes on in the Woolworth. Do you know what I'm talking about? Called The Shiners?
No.
And I've seen advertisements about it, and I always thought it was The Shriners.
Oh, very probably different.
The Shiners involves moonshining.
Oh.
In the Old South. The Shriners, very different.
But yeah.
With the little fez and the...
Yes,
yeah.
with
and
the children.
Clown cars and...
Yeah.
Right. And the Shriners Convention.
Very
and Ray Stevens.
different.
Yeah. Different thing. Any JFK conspiracy theories?
No. I mean... I did just learn, though, of course, this is JFK Jr., so my husband's a pilot, and we were talking about, JFK Jr., he crashed the plane. There was like 15 things that he did wrong. He should have never been flying the plane in the first place. I'm not going to go into it. But I had no idea that their bodies were never recovered from that. The fuselage was.
I'm today old knowing that. I did not know.
I know.
That.
And so... I might need to be fact-checked because I thought that was strange that I didn't know that. But they were very 100% certain that their bodies had never been recovered from that. And I thought that was a little strange.
I mean...
It's possible.
I suppose that's odd, but, if the bodies were separated from the plane, probably easier to find the plane, and then the bodies are organic material. And
supposedly he was hell-bent and determined to fly that night. His foot was in a boot. He had never flown. He was not IFR rated.
So instrument
rated, right? And the weather was bad. His instructor offered to come. He's like, "No, I'm going to do this one on my own." It's like, I wonder if he's just on an island somewhere.
Oh, he just disappeared?
Yeah, maybe that's a conspiracy, right? Am I just creating one?
No, I mean,
may as well pile it on.
I mean, sure. I mean, I would be willing to guarantee you, if it is a fact that their bodies were never found, it is equally a fact that there's a conspiracy theory that he's still alive.
Yeah.
I mean, there's one Elvis.
Maybe somebody listening right now can text us and let us. They can do the fact checking for me.
Yeah, no, guaranteed it's already happening.
Okay, perfect.
Super text line up and running 615-737-9986.
We need to know, where's JFK Jr.
Before we get to talking about depressing things like Nashville, Kelly has a theory on JFK. Hello, Kelly.
Hey, thank you, Matt. I appreciate this, and I'm real excited you let Kojo go first because she's going to add to my theory on this. So, real quick, I am not a believer in coincidences, and you've got two brothers that were both assassinated, so there's just a coincidence there. MLK also. I believe the Kennedys, MLK was definitely making waves, and the Democratic Party has always been the party of racism through history, and people were not excited about this. I believe the Kennedys were going to make the civil rights laws pass, and they were actually going to do it and believe in it. And that would not sit well with the Democrat Party. But because Kennedy himself has so many skeletons in his closet as a playboy and with gambling, et cetera, it was just the perfect storm. But I think if you were to step back, the coincidences of both Kennedys being assassinated, Martin Luther King being assassinated, and then the person that, of course, LBJ, that does get recognized for all of this, just steps right into it. I think if you look at what the Democrats just did to Biden and threw him off to the side as soon as they were done, shows that that party has always been run by the deep state. And if they don't like something, they just discard it completely. So I'm going to stick with the CIA, and that they went ahead and coronated LBJ just as they coronated Kamala Harris.
Well, maybe the CIA, maybe the military-industrial complex, because LBJ was more consistently aligned with the idea that they wanted to involve themselves in the Vietnam War, and they felt like Kennedy wasn't. I've heard that, too.
Right.
You know, right. Kelly, you catch me. Here's the thing. Whether it's MLK, JFK, Marilyn Monroe, 9/11, JFK Jr., whatever, you catch me at a good time in my life, Kelly, because there was a time where I was a conspiracy theory killer, right? I would come at these conspiracy theories because I'm kind of a believer in Occam's razor, that the straightest line of intellectual thought is oftentimes the one that connects. But I'll tell you what changed all of that for me, and it was COVID. COVID changed all of that for me. There is nothing that I would not be willing to entertain in terms of believing that our government would do.
And it's the same people. Hate to say it, but if you look back at all these, just too much coincidence, and you can, just like Miss Courtney Johnston has just brought to the table, you can start to open that one. But, I look at a family. How many people do you know that have been assassinated? Okay, well, how many people do you know who was assassinated and his brother was assassinated? And how many people do you know who was assassinated, his brother was assassinated, was working with another guy who got assassinated? So just that alone allows me to step back and say, we know for a fact Oswald didn't kill all three of them, and he definitely had nothing to do with JFK Jr. So that's where I would sit. And it's nice to see you at this time, Mr. Murphy. I think this is a really good time slot for you.
Well, thank you, Kelly.
You're welcome.
You're very sweet. I appreciate the call. You call back anytime. I love that. Now, see, if you yell and scream at me, I don't tell you to call back anytime. I mean, but heck, Kojo and I yelled and screamed at one another the first time we got together. And
I think that was very
friends.
One-sided, actually.
No, I remember it differently.
I'm sure you do.
We've made friends. By the way, we've got a lot of reaction to your the bodies. We're being told that the bodies were not found and the bodies were found, which is great.
So both.
Which is great.
Okay.
The consensus is that the bodies were recovered, but they were in such, bad shape,
right,
that it was decided just to bury them at sea.
What?
I don't know. I'm repeating what 2277 said. Bodies were found. Bodies were recovered. He's alive in another dimension.
I told you. Oh, my goodness.
If you've ever flown a plane at night, it's super easy. Is your husband instrument rated?
He is.
So have you flown with him at night?
A lot.
And I'm told that it's easy to get turned around, especially when you're away from cities and you can't have points of reference.
Well, absolutely. And so you have to trust your instruments. You cannot trust. So we flew over the weekend. We had a celebration of life and we were flying and had to fly into the clouds. I personally do not like flying into the clouds when I'm sitting in the co-pilot seat because the clouds come at you. So it's a strange feeling.
You feel like they're going to hit you?
Well, it's just a weird sensation. And then when you can't see anything, but you see the clouds, constantly going, it's very disorienting. So just to make me feel better, I look at the instruments to make sure that we're still level, we're maintaining altitude, attitude, all of that. Because if I just look, I'll feel like, oh God, where are we going?
You're not doing that female co-pilot thing, are you? Oh
no, no. I will do it in the car with my husband all day,
kidding.
Every day. But I keep my mouth shut with piloting because I don't know, and so I'm good at being quiet.
Jim has written in and says, "Way to go, Murphy! You've now compared the lovely Courtney Johnston to Cujo. Good job."
A rabid dog.
Oh, well, I mean, Kojo.
So rude.
Kojo. It's like a Hojo. The old Howard Johnson.
You're making it worse.
I will continue to make it worse in a moment. Take a short time out, try to repair all of this. And we will actually get into, last night was a city council meeting, right?
All night long.
I'm certain we got FUSUS taken care of, LPR's on the way, National Fairgrounds Speedway taken care of.
Yes, we're on the straight and narrow.
And no new taxes, right?
All of that. I
can't imagine doing what you do.
I tell people a lot, I'm like, my goal is to not have a stroke.
So we may as well talk a little about this first, because we got FUSUS on the line, we got LPRs on the line. We need to talk about tax increases. But real quick, because I don't want to belabor it, it has been a passion project of mine to continue to talk about the Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway, the incredible offer that is on the table through Bristol Motor Speedway and their parent company, the opportunity to have them invest some, $130 million, something like that.
It's a large investment.
A large amount of money into revitalizing Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway, into bringing it back up to what it was at one time.
Better.
To make it viable. Because frankly, without investment in that property, it will die.
Well, it's already costing taxpayers each year about $2 million because it's falling apart. And in my opinion, there's been multiple administrations that have purposely allowed it to just get dilapidated. And there's some people that would say that it's not safe to race there. It is a charter protected use.
Thank goodness.
The state gave us that land with certain parameters. And so it is a historical racetrack. It predates Metro. For sure. It started off as a horse track.
In 1904.
Yes. And so, we just had this large debate around the historical commission and the historical zoning commission and moving it under planning and how important historical preservation is, yada, yada, yada. But then when it comes to the racetrack, but we don't want the racetrack. It's like, so you want historical preservation for just the stuff that you like? I mean, that's not historical preservation. Right. So again, talking out of both sides of our mouths. But Bristol is offering an incredible investment into that the taxpayers would not have to backstop, which typically we do. Our revenue bonds, there's no loss for it. It would turn out to be a revenue producing at that point. Sound barriers, making it much more amenable to the community around there that lives around there as far as sound and things like that. It is a win-win for everyone. And
unless you want to destroy the racetrack. I mean, the only argument against doing this deal, in my opinion, as I understand the deal, as you've just described it, there's no additional tax dollars going. As a matter of fact, you would see fewer tax dollars going to that facility that are currently going to it. It's
and
a
sales
charter
tax revenue would
and you would obviously have the benefit. I think it would add the only argument you could make from a neighborhood perspective is that the sound abatement would get better. It would add, I think, one weekend a year.
Right.
It's currently 9. It would add an additional weekend.
Correct.
But you would have a NASCAR race coming into town, and that's going to draw in an incredible amount of revenue. I think it would, generally speaking, encourage business opportunity around that community. It would grow that community in a way that you need to add to what Geodis Park has already done. In my opinion, the only reason you're against this is you would just as soon the racetrack go away.
I mean, I'm sure we'll hear what these arguments are if this is ever presented to us. it'll be interesting. I mean, we
Colby Sledge was always against it, right? Is that fair?
Yes.
To say, and he's now with the mayor's office.
No, Colby is not.
Okay, maybe I have my my minions mixed.
You're thinking of Dave Rosenberg, I think. Colby. I don't know what Colby's doing. I think he's on a board or commission, but he's not with the mayor's office.
And he slow walked the public hearing on it. I know that, and then eventually they had, ironically enough, the public hearing in Geodis Park about a year and a half ago or whatever it was. Wildly popular idea to do this renovation. But the elephant in the room is John Ingram, and the John Ingram, who's the majority owner of the Geodis Park Soccer Club, et cetera, who publicly has stated in the past that he has no problem with the Speedway's existence. But everything I hear is that John Ingram is pushing the mayor to kill the Bristol deal. That's everything that I hear. Are you hearing the same things?
I've never talked with, I have a lot of respect for John Ingram, I have to say, and I've never spoken with him about this particular subject. Certainly there's rumors swirling around. It's a rumor is a rumor. So unless I can verify it, I'm not going to certainly say anything on air. And so I can't speak to that. I don't know. My fear and my frustration, and you and I spoke about this off air, and I'll share it with the audience, is that I haven't been around Nashville as long as so many of you. But every community I've been in, if you talk to the community as I do, you will hear people talk to you about the things they wish they had fought to save. And every community's got them, whether it's Opryland or another historical place here in Nashville. If you've lived in Nashville for a long time, you know the places that we're talking about. And this is going to be another one if we don't fight to save it. If we don't fight to do and maybe people don't want to save it. I don't know. Maybe you want it to be a parking lot or more condos for John and his soccer team. I don't know. But, I don't know. Again, it's a charter protected use. And so in order to remove that use, the charter will have to be amended, which is only done by referendum. And so that's we'll see.
But and all of that is designed. They're trying to slow walk it, whether it's slow walk in the public meeting, slow walk in presentation in front of the guy. Now they're saying, well, we need public input. You had public input a year ago, but you've slow walked it so long. Now you can go back and do it all over again. The idea is to slow walk it long enough where Bristol finally says, to hell with it, we're out. And then you don't have to worry about it anymore. And guess who gets their way? The powerful interests that want to bulldoze the place. That's who gets their way. Let's talk about some other matters. Obviously, the Fairgrounds Speedway is near and dear to my heart. I hope that it comes up for a vote. I hope that the council sees better. I'm not hopeful that we're going to see anything move on that. What other options are there? If we can't get it before the council, if Freddie won't push this, if he won't utilize, the power that he has and influence maybe over some of these fellow council members or his position as mayor, I know you're all in on it. What other options do we have?
Well, to do anything there, we have to allocate dollars. That has to be voted on by the council. I don't know where that would stand depending on what they would try to do. If you're demolishing the Speedway in any way, the vote threshold is increased to 27 required votes. Mm-hmm. So that makes it a little bit more difficult. Again, if you change the use away from a Speedway, then the charter will have to be amended. And like I said, that has to go to referendum, and that's a heavy lift.
It's a vote of the people, right?
The vote of the people, right, yeah. Sure. And in 2017, and somebody could probably correct me if I'm wrong, they did have a referendum, and it was voted overwhelmingly in favor
71%,
of,
something like that?
Yeah. So, what would that be now, 8 years later with an influx of new people and new ideas and not necessarily interested in our history and stuff, who knows? But it makes me nervous to think about a referendum. So
I would love, and it is easy to talk. I hear so many things. I hear very different opinions about John Ingram and his influence over this process. And I just encourage, if you know Ingram, if you're anywhere near his orbit, I understand that this is a multi-gajillionaire and he's got better things, but I would love to sit down with him and just talk to him about, one, what he's done with Geodis Park, what he's done to help benefit the community there, what he's done generally and broadly in Metro Nashville, and secondarily, what his position is on all of this, because I do feel like he has tremendous influence as to where this goes next. Because what I hear, no matter who's talking to me, friend or foe, they tell me that he has his eyes on that property. And, I would love to hear from him if that's true or not.
Yeah, I have no idea. He's a smart man, and I know that if they put their heads together, they could figure it out. So I'm hoping that will happen.
Yeah, I do too. Talk to me about FUSUS technology. It exists. It's available. We could do this. Are we going to do it? Was there a conversation? What's going on? Yeah.
So the policy around which we can use technology like FUSUS passed last night. The guardrails policy. I was told that third reading of the policy and the contract, which is a one reading resolution, would happen on the same night. I got the agenda. The third reading of the policy was there, but the contract was not. So I don't know when that is going to come. So right now we have a policy around it, but we still have not approved FUSUS. That's a whole nother vote. When will that come? That's in the mayor's hands. I know that he's going to wait and to see what happens with FUSUS, to see what's going to happen with LPRs. We're going into budget season. He's going to present his budget before the end of next month, and then we are officially in budget season. I very seriously doubt that anything controversial will be introduced in that time period. We typically try to leave that to where we're focused 100% on the budget for those few months. And so it's very, very frustrating. We had a whole year and a half delay based off of choose how you move, because nothing happened until that was voted on. And so here we are with this backlog of things, specifically around public safety, that have not been tended to. And then there's always a reason to delay something, right? It's, now this has happened. Well, now we got budget. Now we got this.
It occurs to me, Freddie comes in here and, he talks. I mean, he's been fairly open about how he does things. And he tells me this all the time, too. Well, we need to deal with this before we deal with that. We need to deal with transit tax before we talk about property tax. We need to deal with FUSUS before we talk about LPRs.
Which is a personal choice and arbitrary.
Well, we need to figure out, I need to focus on this thing before I can even think about the Fairgrounds Speedway. And I'm like, you're mayor of a major city in the United States of America. Can you not do more than one thing at once? Can you not think about more than one thing at once? I mean, it's getting a little frustrating, and it's almost as if he's just putting this crap off. Tell me I'm wrong, Courtney.
I can't tell you you're wrong, Matt. I mean, I've been frustrated with it. What
is that? What exactly does LPRs have? I mean, I know I'm yelling at the wrong person, and y'all understand, right? Courtney is a Metro City councilor, and she's one of the good ones. There's I don't know, three? I don't know. Anyway, but maybe four. She's one of the good ones, and she's one of the few that will actually speak to the people of Davidson County on an open forum like this. My question then is, what does FUSUS have to do with LPRs?
Nothing.
Right.
Nothing, except for that it seems to be less controversial than LPRs, and so that's sort of the litmus test, or that's what I'm thinking that the mayor is thinking, is that FUSUS is the litmus test, and so if FUSUS passes, then there's a path forward for LPRs. But if FUSUS doesn't pass, I don't know that we'll ever even see an LPR contract, which, by the way, have been and still are ready to go. I mean, they could be filed for this next agenda on April the 1st. So again, I mean, like I said, my ordinance allowing LPRs passed in 2022. This is how long I've been fighting about this. It started in 2021.
And by the way, is it not wildly successful in other communities?
Everywhere else.
Mount Juliet is.
They catch our criminals all the time.
They're catching folks from Nashville all the time.
And their frustration level is getting increasing, because they're having to deal with our stuff that we should be able to deal with on our own. So yeah, I mean, there's nothing else to say except that it's incredibly frustrating. And last night there were some things that were said that I think some votes were flipped on FUSUS because of the quote unquote current climate, and they're very concerned about the immigration enforcement and deportations and things like that. And what they're failing to understand is that none of these cameras are ours. They're all privately owned cameras. We don't hold any data. There is no data for ICE to come knocking for. We don't hold that. And if ICE wants the data, if ICE wants what's on these cameras, they're going to go to the camera owners. Just like they can right now.
Well, right.
With or without FUSUS.
Yeah, right. FUSUS simply, it streamlines the system.
Right.
And makes it more efficient to catch criminals better and faster.
It expedites investigations, and it makes more efficient response to active scenes.
The idea is that we would have caught, Megan Barry a lot quicker at City Cemetery if we had the FUSUS. What?
Jeez.
It's true. Fourth Avenue. I know who.
I know you do.
I mean, but that,
No.
they just sliding in there at 5 o'clock in the morning. Well, don't. What? I'm already accused. Bob's accusing me of cutting you off. Do you feel like I'm cutting you off? I don't want to do that.
I'm probably cutting you off as much.
No. We're just having a conversation.
Yeah, right.
Property taxes.
Yep.
So the last time we had the mayor on, and, it takes a month of Sundays to get him to schedule, but he comes on, to his credit, and I appreciate Freddie coming on. He had a very interesting answer to the question. He said, because transit tax was done, right? Done deal. And he said, well, it's a property tax reassessment year, and that's the time to look at these types of things, Matt. That was his answer regarding my question as to whether or not property taxes are going up. Do you believe that there will be a property tax increase proposal?
100%.
When? What is the expectation? Tell me how that would work, how that would look functionally.
I'm not exactly sure how to answer your question because I'm not sure what the question is. So, that comes before the council, right? So the mayor presents his budget or hers, and the council contemplates that, and they can either amend the budget or substitute the budget. If the substitute budget that the council comes up with does not pass, then the mayor's budget goes into effect automatically.
Okay.
And so if the mayor presents a property tax increase, the only way to get away from that is for the council to figure out where that revenue that the property tax increase would bring in could come from, a different source of revenue, or to cut expenses in order to not need that extra revenue. It's usually a large number. The council, just the way that we're set up, it's like a $3.5 billion budget at this point, right? So we affect that budget 1-2%. I mean, it's just very, very small. And the way that we do it is we rob Peter to pay Paul, because unless we're willing to increase revenue in some way, that's the only way to do it, is to rob Peter to pay Paul. So that's why we don't have a whole lot of influence over.
Because you can't get enough people on the council to be convinced that, shedding waste cutting the budget is kind of a non-starter with this council. Is that fair?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, and quite frankly, I think that it's necessary. I mean, we just in 2020 raised, Cooper's budget was a 32% increase, and we actually, or the council, I voted against it, but they voted to increase to 34%. That's where the 34 came in. Cooper was 32. And
I'm sure John Cooper was like, I tried to save y'all money.
Yeah, well,
right.
So yeah, but
because that's what they do.
Because we've got all these people coming in, special interest. This group wants a raise. This group wants funded for their programming, yada yada. And so that's where they start. Well, who's asking for what, and who do I want to give? Say yes to. So
he throws out a property tax increase included in his budget proposal.
Correct.
Just so I have this right. And then y'all have to override his budget with your own.
Yes.
If you're going to get something different.
Yes.
And
because what he's going to say is if he adds in let's say it's a 10% property tax increase, whatever, let's say that's $100 million. It's not, it's more than that, but let's say it's $100 million. His budget has to balance. So his revenue equals his expenses. And so in order for us to change that, we either have to reduce the revenue down, we also have to reduce expenses down, meaning
So
we have to cut.
If you don't do that property tax increase,
Right.
you got to figure out where that money comes from.
Right. So we have to make cuts or find an alternative source of revenue, which is impossible to do. So,
And your council is not going to be in the business, and I'm putting words in your mouth. I don't mean to do that, but your council is not in the business of cutting $100 million out of the. They're not going to do that.
No.
So you feel like, would it be fair to say that if the mayor makes the decision to raise property taxes and
It's
presents
happening.
that within the budget, it will happen?
It's happening.
When would that be?
It would go into effect this next property tax.
No, I mean, when would he throw that proposal to the council?
So he, by charter, he has to present his budget before April 30th. And then we have to pass a budget before June 30th.
So if we want no new property taxes in Davidson County, the time is right now to be organizing against what we believe to be Mayor Freddie O'Connell's potential to call for a property tax increase.
Yes. And just to put it into a perspective, my over-under on the percentage increase is 20%.
20% on top of the 34% that just happened however many years ago? 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Well, on that happy note, we have to go, Courtney.
I'm so sorry.
I mean, that's great.
I'm so sorry.
Well, I mean, it's time to get organized, in my opinion. If there is a robust group of people in Davidson County that want to fight against this, you got to fight against this now. He's not going to announce it. He's not going to say, hey, by the way, 2 weeks from now, I'm going to raise your property tax, or propose we raise your property taxes. They're just going to throw it in there.
Well, Matt, you know what I would say to all of this is elections matter. And so when we have 80% of the electorate that does not turn out for local elections,
yeah, that's true.
This is what happens.
That's Courtney's way of reminding me that I voted for Andy in the primary. That's what she did.
And have regretted it every day since.
Courtney Johnston, thank you.